The tank, cruiser, Challenger was a British tank of World War II. It mounted the QF 17-pounder anti-tank gun on a chassis derived from the Cromwell tank to add heavier anti-tank firepower to the cruiser tank units. The design compromises made in fitting the large gun onto the Cromwell chassis resulted in a tank with a powerful weapon, but with less armour. The extemporised Sherman Firefly conversion of the US-supplied Sherman to take the 17-pounder was easier to produce and, combined with delays in production, meant that only 200 Challengers were built. However, it was able to keep up with the fast Cromwell tank and was used alongside them. History. The driving force in the development of Challenger was Roy Robotham. Robotham had been a Rolls-Royce executive in the car division who, with no work to do, had led a team to develop a tank power plant from the Rolls-Royce Merlin aircraft engine. The Rolls-Royce Meteor gave the British a powerful reliable engine, which would power the A-27M cruiser Mk8 Cromwell tank. Robotham's contributions gained him a place in the Ministry of Supply and on the tank board, despite his lack of experience in tank design. Initially, Vickers had been working on a high-velocity 75 mm gun to be fitted to the Cromwell, but it was realised that the Cromwell's turret ring was too small to mount it. There were longer-term plans to develop improved tanks to replace the Cromwell. This would deliver the interim Comet tank and, at the end of the war, the Centurion tank. The General Staff brought forward specification A-29 for a 17-pounder armed cruiser tank. This was passed over for the alternate specification, A-30 for a 17-pounder armed tank. In 1942, an order for a 17-pounder gun-armed tank was placed with Birmingham Railway Carriage and Wagon Company expecting it to be based on the A-27M components. Turret and gun mounting was in the hands of Stothert and Pitt. Birmingham Carriage had to modify the Cromwell hull to take a bigger turret. Design. The hull machine gun was removed to provide storage space for the long 17 PDR cartridges. It was expected this larger ammunition, together with its stowage forward, would require two loaders and hence a larger turret. To accommodate the large weapon and a second loader, a turret larger than that of the Cromwell was required and the hull had to be lengthened. And an extra road wall added. This change in length, without a corresponding change in width across the tracks, reduced mobility compared to the Cromwell. In order to keep the weight under control, compromises had to be made and armouring was reduced. It was not possible to reduce hull armour, so it was reduced on the turret, 63 mm on the front and 40 mm on the side compared to 75 mm and 60 mm on the Cromwell. As the base of the turret was unprotected, a jacking feature was fitted to clear any jam resulting from enemy action. The first Challenger was completed in 1942. When the second was tested at Lulworth, it was criticised that, although it would be effective at long range against the current best gun tank in German service, at shorter ranges it would be at a disadvantage due to slow firing rate and thin armour. An order for 200 was placed in February 1943. In November of that year it was announced that no more would be ordered. Service. No provision had been made for deep wading trunking and the A-30 was unable to participate in the Normandy landings. The tank had to wait until ports had been secured and the Mulberry harbours completed. The Challenger, despite its high centre of gravity, was liked by its crews as it was somewhat faster and more agile than the equivalently armed Sherman Firefly. The Firefly design, which had been a backup, proved to be easier to build and production of the Challenger was stopped with about 200 built. Many of the A-30s were issued to units using Cromwells, which eased maintenance as they shared many parts. As well as with British units, the 1st Czechoslovak Armoured Brigade, which was supplied by the British, used the Challenger in its operations besieging Dunkirk. After the war ended, the Czechoslovak government purchased 22 Challengers from the brigade wartime inventory, and these vehicles continued to serve in the post-war Czechoslovak army until retired to the reserve in 1951 and finally scrapped in 1959. The 1st Polish Armoured Division received a few in mid-1945. Variants. The Avenger or SP-17 PDR, A-30 was a variant on the Challenger idea with a differently shaped open-top turret to help reduce weight. With priority production at Vauxhall Motors for the Comet tank, Those built in 1945 were not ready for use until after the end of the war in Europe. Some 250 were built and these formed part of the British Army of the Rhine in Germany. Survivors. 2 vehicles survive. One is at the Overloon War Museum in the Netherlands. The other is awaiting restoration at the Isle of Wight Military Museum in the United Kingdom. Once restored, it will be displayed at the Bovington Tank Museum. See also. References. Bibliography, Bingham, James. AFV Profile Number 25 Cromwell and Comet. Profile Publishing Boyd, David. The Challenger Tank Equipment.com Evans. McWilliams. Whitworth. Birch. The Rolls-Royce Meteor. Rolls-Royce Heritage Trust. ISBN A1-872922-24-4 Fletcher, David. The Universal Tank. HMSO. ISBN A0-11-290534 Fletcher, David. Cromwell Cruiser Tank 1942-1950. Osprey Publishing. ISBN A1841768,146 Hayward, M. The Other Challenger. Sherman Firefly, White, BT British Tanks 1915-1945. Ian Allen. External links, on War, Avenger at www.photo.mimerswell.com.